leadership has always been a topic of immense importance and endless debate. Throughout history, leaders have faced the same core challenge. Should they lead with power or with wisdom? Should they rely on force and fear, or should they inspire loyalty through integrity and strategy? Two of the greatest minds in history, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, and Sun Tzu, the military strategist, tackled this question head-on, each offering their unique perspective. In a world dominated by ambition, power, and control, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that the only way to lead is through raw force. But when we look deeper into the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius and Sun Tzu, we realize that true leadership requires something far more enduring, something that transcends fear, something that can inspire true loyalty. It's not about ruling with an iron fist, it's about leading with wisdom and strategy. Today we're diving into Stoic philosophy, the art of war, and the timeless lessons of both Marcus Aurelius and Sun Tzu. We'll explore what sets a great leader apart from a ruler hungry for power, and how the ancient wisdom of these two figures can help guide modern-day leadership. Are we simply meant to command and conquer, or is there something more, something that outlasts fear and force? 1. Strength without wisdom is weakness. It's easy to look at strength and power as the ultimate qualities of a leader. The world often celebrates those who exert control, who show their strength in bold and commanding ways. After all, who wouldn't want to be a leader who is feared, respected, and able to get results? But here's the truth. Strength without wisdom is nothing more than a facade. It may look powerful on the surface, but it is weak at its core. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, believed that the greatest form of power wasn't in crushing others, but in mastering oneself. The greatest power is self-control, he said. True strength comes from within. It's about having the discipline to stay calm in the face of chaos, to make decisions that align with your values, and to lead with purpose, not force. It's not about crushing your opponents, but about managing your own impulses, desires, and emotions. A leader who cannot control themselves will never be able to control a nation, a team, or a community. They may rule through fear, but they will never inspire loyalty. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, echoed a similar sentiment. He said, "If you have to rely on intimidation alone, you've already lost." Ruling through fear might win you immediate obedience, but it doesn't create lasting success. Fear may control people, but it doesn't connect with them. A leader who constantly flexes their power is often insecure about their leadership. They rely on force because they fear vulnerability, and in doing so, they miss the essence of true leadership, wisdom. This concept is vital in understanding the difference between a ruler and a leader. A ruler who governs solely by force may appear powerful, but this is an illusion. True leadership isn't about controlling others with sheer power. It's about guiding them with wisdom, making decisions that benefit the greater good, and knowing when to use strength and when to exercise restraint. Think about the great leaders in history, both past and present. Many of them understood that real strength lies in wisdom, not in domination. A wise leader recognizes that power is a tool, not the goal. They understand that strength without wisdom leads to chaos, instability, and fear. Wisdom allows a leader to understand the bigger picture, to act with patience, and to inspire loyalty without resorting to intimidation. So, ask yourself, are you leading with wisdom, or are you simply exerting power? Do your actions reflect thoughtfulness, empathy, and strategic thinking, Or are you simply trying to impose control? True strength isn't about overwhelming your enemies. It's about mastering yourself and leading with purpose. The more you embrace wisdom in your leadership, the more your strength will grow, not as a fleeting force, but as a lasting influence. 2. War should be the last option, not the first. In a world where the rush to power often leads to war, both Marcus Aurelius and Sun Tzu remind us of an important truth. War should always be the last resort, never the first choice. Throughout history, many leaders have sought conquest to secure their rule, believing that victory in battle would solidify their authority. But both Marcus and Sun Tzu knew that the true mark of a wise leader is the ability to avoid unnecessary conflict, to solve problems before they escalate into violence. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, famously stated, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." His teachings emphasized the importance of strategy over brute force. The greatest leaders, he argued, are those who can win without ever needing to raise a sword. This doesn't mean avoiding conflict entirely. It means using your mind, your negotiation skills, and your wisdom to find alternative solutions that don't involve violence. Marcus Aurelius shared a similar outlook. As a Roman emperor, he was no stranger to war, yet he understood that war should always be a last resort. His wars were not driven by conquest or greed, but by the need to defend the Roman Empire. Even in battle, he adhered to Stoic principles, seeking peace and stability over domination and chaos. In his meditations, Marcus often reflected on the futility of unnecessary conflict and the need to approach war with a clear, strategic mind. One of the key reasons why war should be avoided is that it disrupts peace and stability, not only for the enemy, but for the leader's own people. Leaders who rush to conflict often end up damaging their own society in the process. The cost of war, lives lost, economies shattered, and the psychological toll on the people cannot be justified by short-term victories. The damage it causes often lasts longer than the victories themselves. In Stoicism, there is a strong emphasis on maintaining inner peace, even in times of chaos. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to stay calm and focused, to deal with external challenges with wisdom, and not to let anger or fear drive his decisions. A wise leader knows that true victory isn't in winning battles, but in finding solutions that promote peace and stability. This means thinking strategically, negotiating when possible, and only resorting to war when absolutely necessary. But how does this apply to your own life? While we're not often faced with literal wars, we are often confronted with challenges and conflicts that can escalate. Whether it's in business, relationships, or personal struggles, the key is to remember that war, whether internal or external, should always be a last resort. When faced with a difficult situation, ask yourself, can this be resolved peacefully? Can I find a compromise, a middle ground, or a way to achieve my goals without creating destruction in the process? In every area of life, strategy and wisdom often trump force and aggression. True leadership, whether in a country or in your own life, is about knowing when to fight and when to step back, reflect, and seek a better way forward. So, the next time you find yourself facing a conflict, remember that victory achieved through wisdom will always be more enduring than one achieved through violence. True power lies not in domination, but in restraint. 3. Legitimacy comes from trust, not fear. In the history of leadership, there are countless examples of rulers who maintained power through fear, leaders who relied on intimidation, punishment, and force to keep their subjects in line. They may have held power for a time, but they never earned the kind of loyalty and respect that endures. Real leadership, according to both Marcus Aurelius and Sun Tzu, doesn't come from instilling fear. It comes from earning the trust of those you lead. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, understood this concept deeply. He wrote in his Meditations, "Do nothing without a good reason." His approach to leadership was grounded in justice, fairness, and purpose. He didn't rule by force. He ruled by leading with integrity, making decisions that were in the best interest of the Roman people. Leaders who rely on fear might control their people in the short term, but they cannot build a foundation of trust that will stand the test of time. Sun Tzu, too, emphasized the importance of trust in leadership. He said, "A general is respected not because he shouts, but because his soldiers trust him." Respect, in Sun Tzu's eyes, is the result of a leader's ability to inspire, not coerce. Leaders who understand the value of trust build strong relationships with their followers. They listen to their people, they communicate openly, and they act with consistency and fairness. In return, their followers are loyal not because they fear punishment, but because they genuinely believe in the leader's ability to guide them toward a better future. Fear may get people to obey in the moment, but trust is what builds a lasting connection. When a leader governs through fear, they create an environment where people follow out of necessity, not out of belief in the leader's vision. This kind of leadership breeds resentment, rebellion, and ultimately instability. In contrast, a leader who earns trust creates an atmosphere where people are motivated by a shared purpose. This type of leader inspires loyalty, not through threats, but through their actions and the values they embody. Think about leaders in your own life, whether personal, professional, or historical. The best leaders you know are likely the ones who made you feel heard and respected, not the ones who intimidated you into compliance. Trusting a leader means believing in their vision and in their ability to lead with wisdom and fairness. It means feeling safe enough to follow their direction without fear of punishment or reprisal. But how do you, as an individual, foster trust in your own life? It starts with being dependable. Whether you're leading a team, a family, or simply managing your own life, trust begins with consistency. When people know they can rely on you, when your words align with your actions, they begin to trust you. It's also about transparency. Leaders who communicate openly, who admit when they're wrong, and who act in the best interest of others, create an environment where trust can grow. Trust isn't something you demand. It's something you earn over time by demonstrating your integrity and your commitment to the greater good. True leadership doesn't come from exerting control through fear. It comes from earning trust through respect, fairness, and wisdom. And trust, once earned, becomes the foundation of a leadership that can stand the test of time. 4. Arrogance is the beginning of collapse. It's often said that power corrupts, but what truly leads to a leader's downfall is arrogance, the belief that one is invincible, above reproach, or beyond criticism. Arrogance blinds leaders to their flaws, alienates those around them, and makes them complacent in their own power. The path from arrogance to collapse is not always sudden. It's gradual, subtle, and often masked by initial success. But make no mistake, arrogance is a seed, and its fruit is inevitable failure. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, was keenly aware of this danger. Despite having absolute power, he never allowed himself to believe that he was infallible. In his meditations, he often asked himself questions like, "Am I acting justly? Am I putting the people before myself? Even in the heights of power, Marcus remained humble, constantly questioning his own actions and motives. His self-awareness and humility set him apart from rulers who were consumed by their own sense of superiority. The Stoics taught that true strength lies in humility, not arrogance. When a leader becomes arrogant, they stop growing, stop learning, and stop listening. They begin to believe that they are always right, that their position makes them untouchable, and that they are immune to failure. But this mindset is a trap. The more a leader clings to arrogance, the further they drift from wisdom and the truth. They may enjoy temporary success, but their inability to see their own weaknesses sets the stage for their eventual downfall. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, warned against overconfidence. All warfare is based on deception. He knew that an overly confident leader is blind to the potential risks and vulnerabilities in their strategy. When a leader believes they are unbeatable, they become reckless. They make decisions without considering the full consequences and fail to adapt to changing circumstances. Arrogance leads to complacency, and complacency leads to defeat. Think about the leaders in history who have fallen from grace. Often, it wasn't a single misstep that caused their downfall. It was the accumulation of their arrogance, their refusal to listen, and their belief that they were above criticism. Whether it's political leaders, business magnates, or military commanders, those who believed they could do no wrong eventually faced consequences. Their arrogance led them to underestimate their enemies, overextend themselves, and alienate their allies. This doesn't mean that a leader should be meek or lack confidence. Confidence is crucial for leadership, but it must be tempered with humility. A truly effective leader understands their strengths and weaknesses, seeks counsel from others, and is willing to admit when they are wrong. They are always open to feedback, and they value the perspectives of those they lead. The lesson here is clear. Arrogance is not a sign of strength. It is a sign of weakness. The greatest leaders, like Marcus Aurelius, remain humble, always questioning their own decisions and learning from their mistakes. They don't let their power define them. Instead, they define their power through wisdom, humility, and the willingness to listen. In your own life, whether you're leading a team, a family, or even leading yourself, make sure you stay grounded. Don't let success blind you to your flaws. Always remain open to learning, to growth, and to the truth. Remember, the most effective leaders are those who stay humble, who acknowledge their mistakes, and who use their power for the greater good, not for personal glory. 5. Freedom can't be taken, it must be respected. Freedom is a cornerstone of any thriving society, and yet it's often misunderstood. In the pursuit of power, many leaders seek to impose control over others, believing that domination is the path to stability. But here's the truth. True freedom is not something that can be taken by force. It must be respected. A leader who seeks to control their people through coercion will eventually find that they've built a fragile empire. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle deeply. Despite being the ruler of the mighty Roman Empire, he recognized that true power lay in respecting the rights and freedoms of those he governed. In his meditations, he often reflected on the importance of balance and the need to respect the dignity and autonomy of others. For Marcus, ruling wasn't about making people submit to his will. It was about ensuring they could live freely and meaningfully within the boundaries of law and order. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, also highlighted the importance of respecting freedom in leadership. He said, "A nation that is forced into submission will always seek to rebel." This insight speaks volumes about the nature of true leadership. A leader who forces submission through fear or brute force may win temporary compliance, but they will never earn lasting loyalty. People naturally resist oppression. Their spirits will always long for freedom. A wise leader knows this and fosters an environment where people feel free to contribute, create, and engage without fear. Freedom, in its truest form, isn't about unchecked liberty. It's about balance. A good leader creates an environment in which people feel empowered, not controlled. They understand that the role of leadership is to guide and support, not to dominate. In Stoic thought, true freedom begins within, but it extends outward. A society or organization where freedom is respected is one in which individuals can find meaning and purpose in their actions, knowing that their rights are protected and their contributions matter. Think about the leaders who have created lasting change. Whether it's in a country, a company, or a community, the most effective leaders are those who respect the autonomy of their people. They know that in order to create true progress, they must give their followers the freedom to think for themselves, to act in their own best interests, and to express themselves freely. When you force people to comply without respect for their personal autonomy, you create resentment and division. But when you respect their freedom, you foster loyalty, innovation, and trust. In your own life, whether you're leading a team or simply managing your personal journey, remember this: true leadership is not about control, it's about respect. You cannot force freedom upon people. Instead, you must create an environment where freedom is nurtured, where people feel valued and heard. The most powerful leaders understand that the path to true authority is built on mutual respect, trust, and the freedom to thrive. So, as you navigate your own leadership journey, remember that true freedom is earned through respect, not force. Respect the autonomy of those around you, and you'll find that you create an environment where people are eager to contribute, to help, and to be a part of something greater than themselves. 6. Power is a moral test. Power, when wielded correctly, can bring about great change and create lasting impact. But it also presents one of the greatest moral tests a leader will ever face. The true measure of a leader is not in how much power they acquire, but in how they use it. Power is not a privilege to be hoarded or abused. It is a responsibility to be exercised with integrity and for the greater good. Marcus Aurelius, ever the Stoic philosopher, understood this deeply. In his meditations, he repeatedly reflected on the nature of power and its potential to corrupt. He believed that a leader should never use their power for personal gain. Don't use power for personal gain, use it for the greater good, he advised himself. This is a timeless piece of wisdom, especially for those in positions of influence. Power can easily lead a leader astray if they are not constantly reminded that it is meant to be a tool for service, not self-indulgence. In The Art of War, Sun Tzu also addresses the moral implications of leadership. He warned that a great leader must resist the temptation to misuse their power. If a leader starts to believe that they are above criticism, or that their position gives them the right to act without accountability, they've already lost their moral compass. True leaders understand that power is not just about control. It's about using it wisely, ethically, and in a way that benefits others. The moral test of power is particularly evident when leaders face temptations that lead them to use their influence for personal benefit. History is filled with leaders who began with noble intentions, only to become corrupted by the very power they sought to wield. Whether it's through greed, ego, or the desire for control, The abuse of power has been the downfall of many who started out with the best of intentions. For a leader to pass this moral test, they must remain grounded in their values. They must ask themselves tough questions. Am I using my power justly? Am I putting the needs of others before my own? These are the questions that keep a leader from veering off course, from allowing power to corrupt them. The more power a leader holds, the greater their responsibility to use it wisely. It is easy to be swept up in the rush of authority, but true strength lies in the ability to wield power with wisdom, compassion, and humility. In your own life, whether you're leading a team or simply taking charge of your own personal growth, remember that power comes with responsibility. The way you use your influence will define your legacy. Power should never be an end in itself. It is a tool to help others, to make the world a better place, and to fulfill a greater purpose. Be mindful of how you wield your power, and ensure that your actions align with your deepest values. The moral test of power is not something you pass once and forget. It's something you face every day. It's about checking your motives, remaining humble, and ensuring that your actions reflect the greater good. If you do this, you will lead with integrity, and your power will serve a higher purpose, one that benefits not just you, but the world around you. 7. Conquering is easy, ruling is hard. It's easy to conquer. Anyone can seize power, take land, and claim victory in battle. But once the dust settles and the initial triumphs fade, the real challenge begins: ruling. The true test of leadership is not in the conquest itself, but in the ability to sustain and manage what's been gained. As history shows, many conquerors and rulers fall not because they lacked the strength to defeat their enemies, but because they lacked the wisdom and patience to govern. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War, warned that a quick victory without a long-term plan is just a delayed defeat. This powerful statement highlights the danger of rushing into conquest without a clear vision for the future. In war, victory can be achieved through sheer force or clever strategy, but the aftermath requires far more than just military might. To build something lasting, to keep what has been won, takes skill, strategy, and, most importantly, patience. Think about the many leaders throughout history who achieved great conquests but failed to establish stable rule. They won battles, but they lost control. Why? Because they were too focused on expansion and not enough on consolidation. They did not have a clear, sustainable strategy for governing once they had conquered. A conqueror who does not plan for the long term will ultimately be undone by the same forces that propelled them to power in the first place. Marcus Aurelius, though constantly engaged in warfare during his reign, understood this distinction. He didn't focus on expanding the Roman Empire for the sake of glory. His wars were largely defensive, and his primary goal was stability and security for Rome. His focus was not just on defeating the enemy, but on maintaining the integrity and strength of the empire. He recognized that the true strength of an empire lies not in its ability to conquer, but in its ability to rule wisely and manage the territories it controls. He was a leader who balanced military action with the responsibility of governance. The lesson here is clear. Conquering is the easy part. Ruling is where the real challenge lies. A leader must not only be prepared for the initial victory, but also be equipped to manage the resources, relationships, and responsibilities that come with it. It's about having the foresight to plan beyond the battle, to create a lasting legacy that is not built on a series of fleeting victories, but on the long-term stability of what's been achieved. In your own life, whether you're managing a team, running a business, or leading yourself, remember that the work doesn't stop once you've conquered your goal. Maintaining success, managing what you've achieved, and continuing to grow requires discipline, patience, and strategic planning. Don't just focus on achieving the goal, focus on how you will sustain that success once you've reached it. Building something meaningful takes time. Like Marcus Aurelius, you must be willing to balance ambition with patience and focus not just on reaching your destination, but on the steady and wise management of your journey. 8. History doesn't forgive tyrants. History has a way of remembering its leaders, not just by their victories, but by the legacy they leave behind. A leader may hold power for a time, but if they rule with cruelty, arrogance, or fear, they will eventually be judged harshly by history. The tyrant may appear to dominate in the short term, but their downfall is often inevitable. The public will not remember them as heroes. Instead, they will be remembered as cautionary tales, examples of how unchecked power leads to collapse. Marcus Aurelius, despite being an emperor with nearly absolute power, was not consumed by the desire to control everything and everyone around him. He was deeply reflective and constantly reminded himself to be just and humble in his leadership. In his meditations, he reflected on the dangers of arrogance and the importance of ruling with fairness. He understood that leadership wasn't about domination. It was about service. He knew that a leader who prioritizes their own ego and desire for control above all else is setting themselves up for failure. Sun Tzu also warned against the dangers of ruling through fear and force. In The Art of War, he said, "If your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him." While this advice is about managing conflict on the battlefield, it also reflects a deeper truth about leadership. Leaders who act from a place of anger, arrogance, or fear tend to provoke resistance. They build their empires on the backs of their people's fear and resentment, and eventually that resistance becomes impossible to overcome. The most dangerous form of leadership is that which seeks to control others through fear, coercion, and manipulation. Tyrants may maintain power for a while, but their reign is inherently unstable. People may obey out of fear, but their loyalty is non-existent. In the end, they will seek to break free, either through rebellion, revolution, or simple neglect. History shows us countless examples of tyrants who, despite their early success, were eventually overthrown or forgotten. The empires they built crumbled because they were not founded on respect, justice, or wisdom. This is why a great leader understands that power is not the ultimate goal. The goal is to build something lasting, something that stands the test of time, not through force, but through respect, integrity, and trust. A tyrant's power is fragile because it is rooted in fear, but a wise leader's power is built on trust, and trust is what lasts. In your own life, whether you're leading a team, a family, or simply yourself, remember this truth. True leadership is not about domination. It's about earning respect and trust through your actions, your integrity, and your ability to listen. Leadership based on fear and control will eventually crumble. But leadership built on wisdom, fairness, and humility will stand the test of time. Ask yourself, are you leading with authority, or are you leading with respect? Are you using your power to dominate, or are you using it to serve and build something greater than yourself? The legacy you leave will depend on the choices you make today. 9. A leader who fears criticism is already failing. One of the hallmarks of a great leader is their ability to accept and learn from criticism. Unfortunately, many leaders, whether they're politicians, CEOs, or even leaders within their own families, shy away from criticism. They surround themselves with yes men or create environments where dissent is discouraged, believing that avoiding criticism will protect their image and their authority. But this fear of criticism is not a sign of strength. It's a sign of insecurity, and it can ultimately lead to failure. Marcus Aurelius, despite being one of the most powerful men in history, frequently reminded himself of the importance of being open to feedback. He asked himself in his meditations, "Am I acting justly? Am I putting the people before myself?" These questions demonstrate his willingness to be self-reflective, to open himself to criticism, and to hold himself accountable. Marcus knew that true leadership is not about never being wrong, but about continuously learning and improving. By acknowledging his mistakes and being open to criticism, he strengthened his leadership and ensured that his actions were aligned with his values. Sun Tzu, too, understood the importance of being open to feedback and criticism. In The Art of War, he said, "If your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him." While this advice is meant for managing conflict, it also reflects a key aspect of leadership. Leaders who cannot handle criticism are like fragile vessels, easily shattered when the pressures of leadership mount. They become defensive, insecure, and unable to grow. Instead of seeking solutions, they focus on defending their egos and protecting their image. A leader who fears criticism is a leader who stops growing. When you avoid criticism, you avoid the opportunity to improve. You remain trapped in your own perspective, never challenging your assumptions or adapting to new circumstances. Leadership requires the humility to listen, the courage to admit when you're wrong, and the wisdom to change course when necessary. Think about some of the most successful leaders in history. They didn't become successful because they were immune to criticism. They became successful because they welcomed it. They saw criticism not as an attack on their authority, but as an opportunity to refine their approach and become better leaders. They surrounded themselves with people who would challenge them, not just people who would agree with them. In your own life, whether you're leading a team, a project, or your own personal growth, think about how you handle criticism. Are you defensive, or do you embrace the opportunity to learn? Leaders who fear criticism are those who stagnate. Leaders who accept criticism are those who grow, adapt, and ultimately succeed. Remember that no one is above feedback. True strength comes from the ability to listen, to reflect, and to change. Don't fear criticism. Welcome it. It's one of the most powerful tools you have to become the leader you were meant to be. 10. Leadership is about service, not domination. True leadership isn't about holding power over others. It's about serving them. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking leadership is about control, about being the one who makes the decisions and dictates the direction. But the greatest leaders in history, from Marcus Aurelius to Sun Tzu, understood that true leadership is built on service, not domination. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, famously wrote, "If you were born to lead, you were born to serve." This statement encapsulates the Stoic view of leadership. To lead is to serve the greater good. A leader's role is not to impose their will on others, but to guide, support, and create an environment in which others can thrive. Marcus understood that his position as emperor was not a privilege to be enjoyed for personal gain. It was a responsibility to be carried with humility and a focus on the well-being of the people he governed. Similarly, Sun Tzu emphasized the importance of serving those you lead. He said, "The general who wins is the one who serves his soldiers, not the one who commands them." Leadership, according to Sun Tzu, is not about exerting control or commanding obedience. It's about serving the people you lead and ensuring their success. A leader who seeks only to dominate will never inspire true loyalty, but a leader who is genuinely concerned for their people's well-being creates a foundation of trust and respect that can withstand the tests of time. This principle is especially important in today's world. We often see leaders who view their position as an opportunity to wield power, to impose their will, and to elevate themselves. But this kind of leadership doesn't last. It creates resentment, alienation, and disconnection. True leaders, however, understand that their position is one of service, not self-interest. They understand that their job is to empower others, to make decisions that benefit the collective, and to create a space where everyone can contribute and grow. The lesson here is simple. Leadership is about serving, not dominating. If you're in a position of power, whether as a manager, a parent, or even just in your own personal life, remember that your role is to serve those around you. This doesn't mean being subservient or weak. It means leading with integrity, listening to others, and ensuring that your decisions are made with the greater good in mind. In your own life, think about how you lead. Are you focused on controlling others, or are you focused on serving them? Whether you're leading a team at work or simply managing your own life, remember that the greatest leaders are those who lift others up, not those who stand above them. True leadership is about creating an environment where others can succeed, where their needs are valued, and where they feel empowered to contribute to the vision. Remember, leadership isn't about the power you have, it's about the service you give. The more you focus on serving others, the more influence you'll have, and the more lasting impact you'll create. As we've explored today, the greatest leaders in history, whether through the lens of Marcus Aurelius, Sun Tzu, or the Stoics, understood that leadership isn't about domination or power. It's about wisdom, service, and respect. True leadership comes from the ability to guide with integrity, to build trust, and to inspire through actions, not force. It's about making decisions that prioritize the greater good, not personal gain, and remembering that true power lies in self-discipline and wisdom. As you step into your own role as a leader, whether in your personal life, your career, or your community, remember these lessons. Don't rush into decisions driven by fear, ego, or insecurity. Instead, be patient, think strategically, and always put the well-being of those you lead above all else. Leadership is about service, not domination. It's about humility, not arrogance. It's about earning trust, not demanding compliance. By embracing these principles, you'll not only become a better leader, but a better person. Someone whose influence lasts because it's built on the foundation of wisdom, integrity, and respect. The world needs leaders who can inspire with their vision, empower with their actions, and guide with a steady hand. You have the ability to be one of those leaders. If today's episode resonated with you, I encourage you to reflect on your own approach to leadership. Are you leading with wisdom or seeking control? Are you focusing on serving others or simply commanding them? Share your thoughts and let's continue this journey of growth together. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights on Stoic leadership and the principles that can transform your life. Stay wise, stay humble, and lead with purpose. Your true power lies in your ability to serve others and inspire them to reach their highest potential. Thank you for joining me today. Let's keep building a better world, one wise leader at a time.